Okay, we're back. Now I've got the two fittings soldered on, and you can see the solder is cleaned off this side so that the washer and gasket can fit on here, because I need to squeeze this one since it's put in from underneath. So my fitting that goes on here is going to squeeze down a silicone washer here, and on this side I've gone in the opposite way, and underneath you can see I have a nut tightened on there already, and the solder is actually up inside that joint. And you can see the solder has not been cleaned off that side yet, but it has been cleaned off this side. So I want to go ahead and assemble this. I have to make a gasket for the pipe fitting, so what I use is this silicone baking mat. It's a silicone baking mat that you can get from Walmart or any place like that. Now, you take the sheet, find the flat spots in the middle, don't use the edge, cut out your gasket, and then put the smooth side of the gasket down before you put your fitting on. Now on this one I'm going to be using a junction, or a whatever you call that, a union. So I'll be putting the union down in there tight. But before I put my union on, I'm going to be putting a washer on top of that fitting. So you'll have this cleaned off, washer on top, solid washer on top of that, and then tighten that fitting until you squeeze the washer down. That gives you a seal in between. Now before you thread that, of course you're going to want to put thread tape on it. So, okay, back with the GEET. We have the plumbing installed now to the bubbler. The bubbler is mounted. You can see we have the intake coming into our resonator, and that intake goes to the bubbler where it's going to pull up fumes. This entrance will be where the fumes are pulled in. We may put a filter here to keep gas from splashing up there, or I may put a divider in there. On the other side we have our down tube with the bottoms drilled out that we drilled earlier. That's fitting into a female, and a down tube that goes into that. That'll all be taken back apart and thread taped so we don't have any air leaks there. Then our two pipes up here we have to take back off and thread tape them and make sure everything's sealed up there, because we don't want a vacuum leak at either one of them. And you can see where I've just tacked these two pipes to the face plate on the resonator so far. That'll all be taken apart and welded back up again completely. The resonator is just tack welded right now. You can see the tack welds there. And the curved pipe that I notched will have to be welded also. But this will be our intake, and this is the intake to the carburetor. So air is going to enter here, and then it's going to be recycled through the resonator, through the bubbler, and come back vapor here. And then our valve here will adjust how much vapor, and this will adjust when it's warm how much airflow we have with just straight air. So far that's what we have. Okay, day 2 on the GEET project. We have the resonator installed, heat exchanger, whatever you want to call that. 2 valves on the front. The back side have been tacked. I've got them attached to the bubbler. The front of the bubbler is already done, and that will go on with the viewing window to be able to see the inside when we get that full of fuel, and we'll be able to take the lid off and access the inside anytime we need to. That'll have an O-ring seal on it that fits right around here, and as you can see, we've soldered the connections that go through. This one's also soldered with a gasket on there, since it has to support the weight of this tube, which is pretty heavy. So there you are. Now I don't have the tube welded here yet. As you can see, I can still move that, but that will be welded up. Right now what I'm working on is the exhaust. Right now I don't have the exhaust hooked up, so what I'm going to do is I've already cut the elbow off of the original exhaust pipe, the muffler, and that brings me straight up. And what I want to do is run this tube straight up into here, but direct it that way so it hits the end, and then the exhaust is forced backward, and then it will come out the back side here. So what I've got is a tube that I've cut, as you can see, to fit inside this tube. And it'll come straight up off the exhaust pipe into here at an angle, and at that angle the exhaust will be forced up and then back around and back out the back, where I'll have another tube on the back side coming out. Okay, so the next video you see will be with this piece off and me cutting holes to make the exhaust hookups. Okay, I've got the exhaust tube coming up out of the head. You can see I've got the 2 pieces sitting next to each other. I've got the tube cut out so that the exhaust can go up into it, and you can see that it curves forward. Sorry about that. So anyway, that is going to get tacked in place now. What I got to do is tighten up my fittings back here to make sure that everything is lined up. I got to tighten down the flange on the exhaust before I tack those parts together. And after that, I'll be putting the exhaust pipe on the resonator, and then I'll be welding the whole thing up. Okay, this is the pipe removed. You can see the bottom side of it where I've got the exhaust tube tacked. I tacked it in place. I'm getting ready to weld up all these joints, and then I'm going to reassemble it with the exhaust tube and gasket tightened down before I attach the 2 ends and make everything work. You might notice Budweiser being served